it's okay.
Chair, we're at 5:30 if you'd like to get started.
Thank you, Callie. I will call this meeting to order. Please call the roll call and verify presence of quorum.
Dalton Kaysen,
Here.
Michael Steedman, Shonda Golden,
Present.
Claudia Davis, Raymond Sherwood,
Present.
Brian Harvey will be absent tonight. Maya Johnson, absent at this time. Antonio Taylor, absent at this time. Sunny Allen, absent at this time. With that, we have a quorum of the Ward 1 Neighborhood Advisory Board. Also present is Councilmember Taylor and Jennifer Alvarez, Council Relations Liaison.
Okay, great. Thank you, Callie. Looks like a pretty short agenda this time. We're moving on to aid 2.1 public comments.
Thank you, Chair. For everyone, Antonio Taylor has joined the meeting. Okay. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name for the record and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you're an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. I do not have any public comment registered for this item. Is there anyone in chambers who would like to make public comment? All right, with that, Chair, no public comment, and Maya Johnson has joined the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to 8.A3, approval of agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I make a motion to the agenda.
Thank you.
Can you make sure your mic's on and you speak into your mic?
Sorry, my statement for the record, approval of minutes.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Ray Sure for the record, I second.
Great. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any discussion?
If you want to. Yeah. Does anybody have any comments on that before we close it?
As a reminder, the previous minutes were from October. We had no meeting last month.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have anything this is just for the approval of minutes. Anyone have any comments on that from the October meeting?
We don't have approval of the minutes on this agenda.
Oh, sorry. Approval of the agenda. My bad. Anyone have anything to add?
Sorry.
No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Motion passes. Moving on to A4, Council Liaison Report. Councilmember Taylor is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and NAB. Happy holidays, everybody. Just a couple of updates. At our November 19th City Council meeting, we heard information on the C-scale noise discussion, and we had a presentation. What came out of that was our team went out and studied a whole bunch of different places at a whole bunch of different times downtown, and the downtown noise consistently exceeded 70 decibels, with daytime levels between 71 and 75, and nighttime levels between 72 and 76. You can watch the presentation if you need more information. So the next steps are we're going to continue to monitor the noise throughout the city, and that will be collected and brought back to council for further discussion. Another thing that happened at that meeting was our police chief gave us a downtown Reno policing update. And I'm just going to share some of the numbers from 2024 to now. We have had over 700 arrests, 1,300 citations. Major crimes were reduced by 54% fewer homicides, 22% fewer injury shootings, and 59 fewer shootings into homes compared to 2024. There was a 25% drop in collisions compared to 2024, and the seizure of 10 pounds of fentanyl and 4.2 pounds of other narcotics. We were going to have we were going to do a neighborhood meeting with the chief, and that turned into a full town hall series. And that's going to set off after the first of the year. I imagine Ward 1 will probably be sometime in February. So we'll keep you posted on that. Additionally, we are down about 22% of sworn positions are unavailable in the Reno Police Department. At our last meeting on December 3rd, we passed the first ordinance reading of a child care text amendment, basically making it easier for in-home child care centers. We got rid of the, minor conditional use permit. And Ward 1 upcoming events, we have the City of Reno Blood Drive on December 12th. December 10th at Reno City Hall from 7:30 a.m. to 1. The menorah lighting is on December 14th from 4:30 to 8. I hope everybody got to see the Christmas tree lighting and the festivities going on downtown for the last 2 weekends. And lastly, this is not a City of Reno event, but it is in Ward 1. If you get a chance, go check out the Reno Aces Home for the Holidays. It is spectacular. Children, families alike. It's really, really a good time. And with that, I'll take any questions. Council will be off for the next, we meet on Wednesday and then we'll be off until after the first of the year.
Thank you, Councilwoman Taylor. You had mentioned there's been a drop in crime.
Some crimes.
Some
yes.
crimes. Why is that?
Well, I'm going to attribute it to our fantastic Reno Police Department and our chief. I think what it is also is technology. We're leveraging a lot of technology in this space. Chief Nance has really been able to do that. We're going to get some more updates on that at Wednesday's council meeting. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Maya Johnson for the record. You mentioned the noise measurements. Was that over 70 decibel figure throughout the day? Is that just ambient noise?
That's just the walking around downtown. And part of that is we have a train that goes through downtown. We have a lot of emergency routes. So you get sirens downtown. We have just the noise of the city downtown.
So just the baseline level?
Yep, baseline level.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Ray Shore for
They're
the
active
record.
tonight.
Quick question about the noise ordinance stuff.
Yes.
Since this was after Halloween, obviously the infamous Halloween party, did that come up? And was there any discussions on that?
So we had planned on discussing this prior to the Halloween. I assume you're talking about the J event. So the two weren't the same things. The J event happened after this had already been scheduled, but for information, the J Resort didn't do anything out of their CUP. They followed all the rules. They shut down by 12:15 on Saturday night. It was a much different experience. I personally went out to all the places where we received complaints and listened, and the noise wasn't nearly what it was on Friday night. We had a perfect storm. I also met with the J before last week in planning for their New Year's Eve event where they can do the same thing. So they can go until 12:15.
Yeah, we asked because our neighborhood, we're not downtown. We're not in the entertainment district. We're almost a mile away, and we were getting decibel readings of up to 91 decibels, which
You are not alone.
which is extremely loud. And if we wanted to come downtown for the event, we would have come downtown for the event. So there was a lot of complaints, at least made from a lot of neighborhoods about
Heard.
that. So
Definitely heard. Thank you. See you later.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to item A5, staff liaison report. Callie?
Thank you, Chair. I have a presentation today with a shorter training than last time. So I'll try to get through it so we can get to our guest presenters today. Everyone's seeing the screen? All right. I just wanted to remind everyone of Reno Direct's contact information. If you ever have any non-emergency service requests, I'll leave this slide up for the future for NAB members and members of the public. Some other reminders, make sure you confirm your attendance with me and respond to the board secretary, Maya Johnson, if she reaches out to you when you're contacted for attendance checks. In a few weeks, I'll send out a quarterly quorum reminder. So that will be for January, February, and March of 2026. So that's the first thing I'll send out. And then we'll continue with the board secretary doing some checks in the interim. Another reminder to sign up for the city newsletters, especially the development projects and council agendas newsletters, as well as any others that you might be interested in. My slide got a little messed up, but Councilmember Taylor touched on these, so I'll just move through them. Just some more information on the blood drive and the menorah lighting coming up. All right, now for some board member updates. We're going to agendize officer elections in January. So we'll have chair, vice chair, and secretary up for election at the January meeting. So if you're interested in serving as in any of those positions or want to be reelected, just keep that in mind. All member information, including term dates, can be found on the Ward 1 NAB page at Reno.Gov /board, so you can keep an eye on when your term will end. And then if you're eligible and interested in continuing your service, you can submit an application to be considered for reappointment. We also have some open spots on the board. There's 2 regular member vacancies and then 2 alternate member vacancies. Okay, we'll dive into the short training today. I'm going to start with a quick review of the NAB's purpose and scope. So that might be familiar to some of you who have served on a board before, as well as some information on how to access meeting materials for any more new recent board members. And then we're going to spend some time talking about the updated board commission committee member reports, announcements, and future agenda items section. Feel free to stop me at any time if you have questions. Okay, so we'll start with review. The council adopted resolution number 9417, providing that neighborhood advisory boards are to serve as ward-based forums for public comment and discussion on certain land development projects, as well as other community issues identified by the council liaison to the board. NABs are intended to strengthen communication between the city and the community by gathering neighborhood level feedback on development project impacts and ensuring that public concerns are recorded. NAB members may ask questions and provide comments, but NABs are advisory bodies only and do not take votes on development projects or recommend positions to the Planning Commission or City Council. Generally, the NAB meeting structure is as follows. We begin with the introductory A items, roll call, public comment, approval of the agenda, meeting minutes, announcements from council and staff liaison. Section B is for development project review. Usually the main bulk of the meeting, as this is where we'll hear presentations from applicants who are bringing forward development projects. Section C is for non-development business items. And then we have the new section D for board member reports, announcements, and discussion of future agenda items. You'll see on your agenda today and on all future NAB agendas that the board member reports and announcements item has been combined with future agenda items. This is how it's going to carry forward on all of the boards and commissions, even those outside of NABs. We just had some confusion with those 2 items being kind of conflated with each other, so we just combined them to eliminate redundancy. So after the D items, we always have a final period of closing public comment, section E, and then we end with section F, adjournment. So agendas are posted at least 3 business days in advance and distributed via newsletter, which you all should be receiving by now. Agendas are also available on the public meeting portal at Reno.Gov /meetings. What you're seeing on your screen is the HTML agenda, which I always recommend reviewing because it just opens in your web browser instead of having to download the agenda. And if you're ever looking for any attachments like presentations or any supporting materials, you'll just click on an item with a paperclip icon and you can select the eye icon to view it in your browser or the cloud with the down arrow to download it to your device. So our main topic today is the board member reports, announcements, and discussion of future agenda items. Those of you who have been on the NAB know that these were 2 separate items. We've combined them. So I'm going to take some time to go over the sorts of things that can and should be brought up by members during this item. So to start, you'll all know this item is always for discussion only, which means the board cannot take action on any item brought up under this item. Since this item is also meant to inform future discussions, board members should avoid starting lengthy discussions under this item. Open meeting law requires us to make sure the public is aware of what the board plans to discuss. So if we get too deep into a topic under this item, you might see me interrupt the conversation and ask that we save it for later if the item is agendized. So what sorts of things can you bring up? Reports and announcements might include informing the board and members of the public of community events and other updates, or what's happening at any other boards that you might serve on. Within this item, board members can also suggest topics for business items to appear on future NAB agendas. Some example of future agenda items could include presentations that help members provide feedback on development or updates from regional organizations or partners relevant to the work of the NAB. Like I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we're always working on ways to make your city government more accessible and transparent. So if you're interested in learning more about the work of a specific department, you can always reach out to me and we'll coordinate and get you some information. Lastly, please note all agenda items proposed by staff or board members must be approved by the council liaison to the NAB before they'll be added to the agenda. I wanted to take a second to go a little deeper into how you as NAB members can work with staff to bring your community's interest to the NAB. We know as NAB members, you're the city's eyes and ears into your respective communities. You know what your community is interested in, and we want you to be able to be a steward of your community and bring things that matter to the table. So one way you can do that is by attending meetings of other city boards and commissions. Just like the NAB, the other boards and commissions meet throughout the year to discuss all sorts of things. So if you're interested in parks or public art, historical resources, they all have their own board, commission, or committee. As a NAB member, you're encouraged to attend these meetings and report on their work at your NAB. Members are also welcome to coordinate with outside organizations to bring guest presentations to the board. If you've attended a presentation that you think would be beneficial for the NAB, you can initiate communication with them and see if they'd be interested in coming. And then once you've confirmed their willingness to present, just loop me in and we'll coordinate with the council member to get the item agendized. For my final slide on this training topic, I thought it would be helpful to talk more about the difference between a future agenda item and a constituent issue. When thinking about what belongs as a future agenda item versus what is better handled as a constituent issue, it could be helpful to focus on what the NAB is designed to do. So because NAB agenda items are for discussion and information sharing, not decision-making, items like presentations from RTC or other community partners allow the board to hear updates, ask questions, and learn about upcoming initiatives. These types of topics benefit the full board and the broader neighborhood. Constituent concerns, however, are often specific to an individual property, service request, or case, and discussion at the NAB may not lead to a solution. In these situations, residents will get faster and more effective support through Reno Direct or by working with council relations staff who can connect them to the right city team. We still absolutely encourage neighbors to bring their concerns to the NAB so we can help guide them to the right place. The goal is to ensure residents receive the quickest and most effective assistance possible. So with that, I just wanted to leave you with some resources. You can always contact me for any questions about the NAB or help coordinating presentations with our council relations liaison. And then for more information on boards and commissions meetings, you can visit the city's calendar for meeting information or go straight to that meeting portal at Reno.Gov/meetings. And then lastly, you can always contact Reno Direct for service requests. That's all the training for today. Coming up, there's a council meeting on Wednesday here in Chambers at 10 a.m. The Planning Commission meeting is next Wednesday at 6 p.m., that should say. And then our next NAB in the new year is on January 12th. Any questions for me? I threw a lot at you, sorry.
It was all very clear and precise. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, and so we don't have any development projects this time, right?
No development today.
All right, so then we're going to go ahead and skip straight to C1, business items, arts and culture, presentation on the potential East 4th Street National Historic District nomination.
Hello, I'm Melissa Hapey, Management Assistant in the Arts and Culture Department, for the record. And I'm going to talk to you about a potential National Historic District along East 4th Street. Next slide. A little bit of background about this project. Couts Environmental Consultants was selected by the Historical Resources Commission to conduct a Phase 1 survey of the historic buildings along the entire East 4th Street from downtown all the way to city limits during the summer of 2024. The same firm was selected to do Phase 2, which is to write a National Historic District nomination based on that survey in the summer of 2025. They began that project. Both phases of this project were supported with Historic Preservation Fund subgrants from the State Historic Preservation Office via the Department of the Interior. The National Park Service administers the National Register, which is the nation's list of places that are worthy for preservation due to their significance in American history. Over 100,000 places are listed on the National Register. Unlike the local register of historic places, the National Register does not restrict what a property owner may do with their historic property. I'm just going to read a brief summary of the nomination from the nomination form. The East 4th Street Historic District is a transportation corridor that shaped Reno's industrial, commercial, and tourist activities in the early to mid 20th century. Commerce and industry along the corridor developed as Reno became a major transportation and distribution hub for northern Nevada and the Eastern Sierra, in part due to its advantageous location on the Central Pacific Railroad, now the Union Pacific, and later along the Lincoln Victory Highway. Commercial and industrial enterprises along the corridor were diverse, including breweries, lumber yards, warehouses, motels, restaurants and bars, grocery and liquor wholesalers, and automobile shops. The district is home to some of Reno's most remarkable early 20th century buildings, including the Nevada, California, Oregon Railroad Depot, now the Depot, and Flanagan Warehouse. Beginning around 1900, the district transitioned from a dusty country road to an important commercial and industrial artery as the railroad, lumber, meatpacking, and warehousing industries took hold. The Lincoln Highway, later co-signed as the Victory Highway and US Highway 40, infused new life along East 4th Street with motels and automobile service businesses emerging to accommodate travelers along this route. Automobile tourism and the divorce trade increasingly demanded services along the highway, especially after the end of World War II, and gas stations, diners, and motels were established to meet this demand. East 4th Street served as the primary east-west thoroughfare through Reno until Interstate 80 was completed in 1974, which allows travelers to bypass the entire business district of East 4th Street, contributing to the decline of its historical industries and association with the Transcontinental Highway. The proposed district encompasses a 1-mile segment of East 4th Street. The boundaries are Evans Avenue on the west to Cares Drive on the east. The Union Pacific Railroad roughly marks the southern boundary, and the northern boundary includes related properties up to 5th Street. So you can see the boundaries encompass more than just East 4th Street. They go a couple blocks north and south of East 4th Street as well for those buildings that contribute to the district. About 3/4 of the properties within these boundaries are contributing to the district, meaning they're associated with the district's historic theme and retain integrity to the historic period. Besides being of public benefit to preserve our shared heritage and historic places, buildings that are designated as contributing to the National Historic District are listed on the National Register. So there's no difference between being a contributing building in a district and being individually listed. This makes these buildings eligible for federal tax credits for qualifying rehabilitation projects. The tax credits are up to 20% of the eligible construction costs for rehabilitation. National Historic District status enhances economic growth by reinforcing heritage tourism and placemaking activities. Finally, higher property values are associated with historic district status. This historic district is in process right now. The next steps are that the State Historic Preservation Office will provide written notice of the potential National Historic District status to all property owners within the district. That will happen in December. This is one of many opportunities that property owners have had to learn about this effort. The State Board of Museums and History reviews all National Register nominations in the state, and they will consider the East 4th Street Historic District at their March meeting. If all goes well, the East 4th Street Historic District will be approved by the keeper of the National Register by June of 2026. That's it. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions for the presenter?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Anthony Taylor for the record. So there, you said that there won't be any infringements on private property rights owners and stuff like that. However, under our own municipal code, Chapter 18, Section 06, Article 17 states that the city government can apply an H designation overlay on top of the Federal Register, what's required of the Federal Register. So under that National Historical Register, is there any plans of like putting that designation on the entire route or under certain buildings?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. It's unlikely that this historic district will become what's known as a local historic district, which is what Chapter 18 governs in the code. The difference is that a National Historic District does not require that all property owners within the district consent to being listed. They don't have to take any action. They don't have to positively give me a permission to list the National Historic District. They can object, but they don't have to consent. For a local historic district designation, every property owner would have to provide positive consent. I would have to receive a notarized letter from every owner saying that they support the local designation. And that's because of the difference in protection. A local historic district would require that changes to the exterior of those properties remain consistent with the historic character of the building. And our Historical Resources Commission reviews those changes in advance. There are no local historic districts in the city, but there are 2 other national historic districts already.
And what are those?
The Newlands National Historic District, which encompasses most of Old Southwest Reno from south of the Truckee River to Monroe and west of Arlington to Marsh, California, Sharon Way. And then the southern portion of the university campus, kind of the old quad buildings and those older 1800s era buildings that are, around Mackey School of Mines, those oldest buildings.
Okay. Yes, in addition, I'm worried about, with the trampling, with people's underused air rights and with such designations, there has been times where you have the preservation board saying you can't do this. It's always frozen in time. And, we have a housing crisis and infill development is very important, and especially to address this crisis. So one of my worries was like, if you had this designation, then you have to deal with private business owners who would have to deal with the bureaucratic noose, and we don't. That was my concern about that.
Yeah, so this national district status will not require property owners to jump through any additional hoops to do any kind of development projects on their property.
Great. Thank you much.
Anybody?
My statement for the record, in March, is this down in Carson City when you have the State Board of Museums?
Yes, also a good question. The State Board of Museums and History moves around the state. They just met this week and they were speaking about potentially having their March meeting in Ely. So they kind of go to different state museum locations so that they get around to all communities.
Okay.
It'll be in Carson City if not in Ely.
Great. Any other questions? Sean?
Ray Shore for the record. How were the boundaries of this district determined?
Thank you. The consultants determined the boundaries after an evaluation of all of the historic buildings. There's 2 kind of requirements to think about which buildings will be included in the boundary. And that's, which are related to the historic theme. So in this case, that transportation corridor, the 20th century transportation corridor, and which of the buildings reflect that period. So if they've been altered to the point where they look modern now, or if there's been a lot of infill development that is very modern, then the district kind of loses its cohesion and ability to display its significance. So when the consultants did the survey of the entire East 4th Street, they determined that kind of beyond Karras Drive, there were many more buildings that had that level of alteration or a lot more infill, and it didn't feel as cohesive. There's a possibility that east of Karras Drive, there could potentially be a separate historic district that encompasses more of those mid-century buildings that are on that side. But to put the whole thing together from Evans all the way to, for example, the city limits would have been too difficult.
Yes, Anthony Taylor for the record again. Would architectural styles utilizing facadism work in order to meld the issue between classic and new and styling and aesthetics? I mean, to clarify, would that help in an application such as this?
Yeah, so maybe what you might be asking is, could a building alter itself to fit more in the historic theme?
Yeah. Yes, as close to it and stuff like that.
So they could restore their historic appearance. So if you were a building owner and your property was not being included in the historic district, but you had a historic photo in a newspaper or, you know, from archives, and you wanted to put your building back to the way that it looked based on that photographic evidence, then it could be reconsidered for inclusion in the historic district. But there is a guideline to not create a false sense of history. So you can't say, I think it probably looked like my neighboring building, and so I'm going to make it look like that now, because without photographic evidence, that might lead people to believe the building looked a way that it didn't in the past.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
Maya Johnson for the record. I was also going in a little curious about whether there would be anything in this designation that might limit possibilities for future development, but it sounds like that's not the case. So just to be clear, we're not in this is purely an additive designation where we would be opening up the possibility of an owner of a historic building to access some federal what's the term? Preservation tax credit. So that just to help them pay for renovations to historic buildings, things like that. There's nothing foreseen in this designation that would possibly limit or discourage anybody from doing something that's not specifically within the historic nature of the buildings that are included. So it still remains pretty open-ended in terms of the whole area. Is that right?
Yes, I mean, I think that there's an intention that recognizing the historic character of the East 4th Street District will really be capitalized upon by the property owners, and they will want to utilize this theme to continue to develop the character identity of the historic district for heritage tourism and economic development purposes. But there is no regulation that would say what a property owner can and cannot do to their property. If a property owner is taking advantage of the historic preservation tax credit, part of that application does require that they show whatever they're doing is going to continue to preserve the historic character of the building. So you couldn't get a historic tax credit and then modify your building in such a way that it was unrecognizable. And also federal undertakings, there is a provision that the federal government can't come in and do projects in a historic district that would adversely affect those historic resources either. But none of that affects the individual property owner from changing their building.
Okay, so we have people who own a historic building who want to preserve it in its historic nature can access that and take advantage of that and promote the historic nature, but somebody else who has a building that's not historic or wants to do something different, and we can just have this eclectic neighborhood where some stuff is historic and it's kind of evolving.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. And with that, I think we'll wrap that up. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next item here, C2, DRP or Downtown Reno Partnership Update.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. I know some of you, I don't know all of you. My name is Neoma Jardin. I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown Reno Partnership, and we are the Business Improvement District for Downtown Reno. So I know some of you have heard some of this before, but I'm going to do it quickly because I know we are giving you a ton of information in the folders I gave you. And if you go to downtownreno.org, there's more data and information there than you could ever want. Does this clicker work or do I? Okay. Okay, we're going to jump right in. What is the Downtown Reno Partnership? Why does it matter? What does it do? How does it benefit Downtown Reno? So a number of years ago, as many of you that have lived here for any period of time, there was a decision point with stakeholders and elected leaders, et cetera, to say government can provide about a mean level of services, a medium level of services. And beyond that, downtowns need more. Not unusual. There are 1,600 business improvement districts across the nation. Downtowns need more of all the things. They need more attention to our homeless population, more cleaning up of trash in the district, more eyeballs and ears in the district in general, more graciously greeting our visitors, our students, our business owners, et cetera. So everybody got together and said, we're going to bring together this business improvement district. And in a rare unanimous vote of the Reno City Council, it was born in 2018. So we are a 501c6 nonprofit. We are not government. We are associated with government. We work closely with government. We meet with code enforcement, with law enforcement, with all different divisions of the city. Today we had a meeting with the maintenance division. But we are a privately funded nonprofit through assessments of property owners in the downtown district. So that pays for our operations, some sidewalk cleaning and maintenance, not maintenance, but cleaning and reporting on the maintenance issues, and our ambassador staff, as well as marketing and economic development. So our bid boundaries, how much area do we cover and what do the different districts within the area mean? So we cover 110 block area of downtown Reno. So if you think of the base of UNR, kind of where the new business building is to the north, we cover all the way from there to the north, all the way down to the upper part of Midtown, so about Liberty area, all the way over to Keystone to the west, and all the way over Wells to the east. So we are a very big business improvement district. And our district is broken up into 3 different zones. We have our standard, which is the exterior part of our district. And as you get closer, you get premium services, a little more heightened cleaning, a little bit more ambassador services, a little more presence. And then premium plus is, you'll see right there, the Virginia Street right down the center. They pay the most, they get the most as far as the concentrated services on Virginia Street. So before the Business Improvement District was created in 2018, if any of you spent any time downtown, this was a very common site. Downtown's reputation was very, very negative. If you came to develop in downtown or you were going to visit, most people would avoid traversing through downtown because this was a common site. There was no real sense of community. Homeless individuals were not consistently tended to in any form or fashion. And the police were really inundated with nuisance calls. So trash, weeds, vandalism, graffiti, and illegal encampments. So this is what it looked like just a few short years ago. I'm going to jump really quick to what makes up our Downtown Reno Partnership team. It's myself, Kristen Sabini, who is our marketing manager and our assistant executive director, and then Nathan DeGangi, who is with us here tonight. He's our economic development director, and he made that great State of Downtown report that is in your pamphlet here tonight. So our ambassadors, what all do they do on a daily basis, and what do they focus on? Well, they do a lot of cleaning. They do a lot of eyes and ears in alleyways, and we patrol the public realm. So anything that is a alleyway, a sidewalk, a park, a plaza, we are the ones that are down there doing that. And the ambassadors, we have about 40 when we're fully staffed ambassadors. We work 3 different shifts. We work 24/7. And our focus is really on cleaning and social outreach and greeting visitors. And so what does it mean when we are focusing on social outreach? So we have a set of ambassadors. They're called our hospitality ambassadors. And they really go out and are the first point of contact with individuals out on the street. Maybe somebody needs some directions to a restaurant. Maybe somebody needs to know, where to park. Maybe somebody is not familiar with the ordinances and the laws on the books. So we are the first point of contact to let people know there is no sitting, lying, or camping in downtown, and actually anywhere in the public realm in the city of Reno now. They might have come from another city where it's different. So we're that first point of contact. We also have security guards that were added just about a year ago. They're the next level that help us in doing the work that we do and creating a stronger presence of safety and security in the downtown core and the public realm. And we patrol largely on foot and in vehicles. And we have 3 different vehicles, a pressure washing truck, a couple of 4-wheel Kubotas that really get into the tight spots, and then a transport van. And I'll touch on that in a second, where we transport to many, many services in the region. So our security guards, I want to touch on this because this really has augmented a lot of the the goals we're after in downtown of really driving up that sense of security, safety, and well-being in downtown. I know that you heard from Councilwoman Taylor a moment ago about how crime had gone down in downtown. I will tell you the crime in the center of downtown, where the Business Improvement District has gone down 17.9% over the last few years, significantly down in the Business Improvement District. And sometimes that message doesn't always get out. And so I'm glad you're all here to help share some of that. And part of that is just the presence and the ambassadors and security guards. And they really are there to be a deterrent. Not always, certainly not a police state, not trying to be overt about anything. And they really do help with allowing our police department to respond to the higher levels of calls that they have. There's not enough police, they're stretched thin. And so we really do kind of fill that gap. This is a slide that is going to summarize just in the last 12 months some of the work that we have done. So the one I'm going to start with the very first one, which is what we have picked up with regards to trash in the downtown business improvement district. That is 307,000 pounds of trash. So I want to give you a visual on that. That's not the trash in the trash cans. That is blowing trash, that is mattresses, that is barbecues, that is refrigerators that people have illegally dumped. So if you go into Mackey Stadium and you are 5 feet tall, that's how much trash we've picked up in the last year. Were it not for the work of the ambassadors, that trash would still be on the streets of downtown. We have removed over 1,100 pieces of graffiti. You'll notice if you see graffiti in downtown, you don't see it for long because we know if it's left for very long, it's gonna replicate, and there's gonna be another one, and there's gonna be another one and another one. So we really do jump on that really quick. We've done over 2,900 power washes. We have a grid of power washing areas that we pressure wash on a daily and a weekly basis, and we coordinate with the city of Reno. When they're doing a certain area, we do another, and we have a grid that we do every day, as well as we respond to hotline calls if someone maybe didn't clean up after their dog, maybe there was a party the night before, maybe there was an encampment that was cleared, but there was some stuff left behind. We come out and clean that up. We did over 30,000 resident, business, and property check-ins. Nobody knows what's going on the streets of downtown Reno than the proprietors of the small businesses, whether it's, and the residents. They are the ones that have their finger on the pulse, and they can tell you something looks a little fishy here. Hey, this is looking good here. And the shift of the hotspot areas and the problem areas is constantly moving, with some exceptions. There are some continually hotspot areas. And so our checking in with the property owners and businesses is really, really important. We let them know of the services we provide, and that's just a direct line of communication that we have with them. We've given over 1,200 rides to shelter and services. We take individuals in need to about 10 different locations. So that initial point of contact does an assessment. What does somebody need? What do they need? Do they need shelter? Do they need to go to a rehab facility? Do they need to go get their license to the DMV? Do they need to go to the Social Security office? We arrange all of those, and we take the individuals to those services. And again, our transport services work 24/7 because we know sometimes you got to catch somebody in a moment when they're ready to go. So we're there all the time. Just some quick before and after photos. This is just a sampling of a small encampment along the river. These things can pop up quickly, and we are there to remove them quickly. And again, we work with the Safe and Clean team of the city of Reno. We work with Grant's team in a number of locations. And again, here's a photo of the railroad. This is what it used to look like. This is Record Street North, very common site. We did a big initiative with the city of Reno, Congressman Amodei and Governor Lombardo to get Union Pacific to be a little more consistent about their patrolling of some of the railroad tracks in downtown Reno. And you can see the difference between the two. Again, Broadhead Park, you can see on the left. I took this picture in particular because on the left, obviously a mess, remnants of a fire. And on the right, I liked it because not only was it cleaned up, but those wonderful trash cans along the river path. Again, riverbank area, this is an interesting one. You have to almost rappel down to get the trash, so the ambassadors are getting creative on how to clean this area up. We have wonderful city walks. We go twice a week with RPD, code enforcement ambassadors. Again, nothing like being out on the street and seeing it firsthand. And you can address things really quickly. You're not having to report it back to a division within the city or somebody to address an issue. You literally can have everybody on this walk and address it in real time. So we do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. If you ever want to come along one of these walks, you're certainly welcome. It's eye-opening, but it's also really encouraging about the progress that's been made. Some of the new things we do, in addition to all of our ambassador services, again, we have our economic development. We'll get into that in a second, but we also do some stuff that is beautification. The trash cans on your left here was a partnership with the city of Reno. They funded doubling of the trash cans in downtown Reno, these great chute style pedal opening trash cans. There's 194 of them now. There was half that many about a year ago. And then we came in and we put the graphic of which you have your mouse pad there in front of you on it, as well as some branding for downtown Reno. The mouse pad that you have in front of you is not just a boundary map of where we work in downtown. It also shows the different districts, some highlights of some museums and different points of interest. But the QR code there on the bottom right of your mouse pad will also take you to every parking spot in downtown Reno. It'll take you to whether it's paid, whether it's customer only, whether it's, what else does it have, Nathan? Paid, customer. Yeah, it's got it all listed there. Yeah, it's got it all on there. So if anybody's saying, well, I don't know where parking is in downtown, I'm going to an event at the Pioneer, they can click on that and find where all the surrounding parking. The picture on the right there is we launched into some planters on Virginia Street this year. We wanted to test out a new design of some planters, flowering planters. It's called a earth planter box, and you only have to put water in it about once every 2 or 3 weeks. And they've really done really, really well. So we're looking, this was probably one of the biggest hits this summer. They really flourished. The one in the middle is the city of Reno's. I just took a picture of it because I love the combination of flowers. There's been a concerted effort to put more foliage and flowers in downtown because that's a softscape. There's a lot of concrete. There's a lot of brick. There's a lot of that. We want to soften that up and add some color. Some of our new equipment, you've probably seen these Kubotas. They get in the tight spots. They do a great job cleaning this up. We have 2 of them. The second one hauls trash and it has a snow blade on the front of it. Hoping we get to use that at some point this winter. We also have a full marketing division, and we not only amplify what small businesses are doing in downtown, we go out, get content ourselves and push it out to let everybody know the great things going on downtown and the businesses. But we also do our own content creation. We'll get a behind the scenes on how does the El Dorado make their mushroom raviolis, or how are certain things made. It kind of gives a behind the scenes. And then we do district marketing events and sponsorships for the concerts, maybe in the Brewery District, the Riverwalk District, so we support that. And then we have secured an every other week Fox 11 news segment, so we get to go on, talk about all the great things going on in downtown. This is a special event promotion for something that was going on at the ACES, and then we'll bring in a small business owner to come in and talk about their business. So it's a great partnership with the media on this. Nathan has produced for our Economic Development Division, the state of downtown. You have it in front of you. It's every bit of data that you could want for downtown. It tells you the demographics, the retail space, the housing, the makeup of the different businesses in downtown. It is a wealth of information. This is not only great for downtown gathering of data, but it's also for sharing. We often get asked, we want more retail downtown. We want a grocery. We want all the things that make a downtown awesome. And any retailer is going to say, that's wonderful. Show me the data. So Nathan put together that data and it took about a year to compile all the information. So there's a ton of information on there. We do a blue carpet treatment. Any new business coming into downtown or somebody who's maybe got something to celebrate, we literally roll out the blue carpet. We get the electeds out there, we get the media partners, and we come and we celebrate businesses in the downtown core. So this is kind of a fun event, and we invite the public to come out. We're at every special event you can imagine, patrolling the perimeter, going through, assisting in any way we can, giving directions, recommendations, picking up trash, and engaging with our great visitors. Downtown event foot traffic. This is a really neat stat. This tracks back how are our special events doing as it relates to foot traffic. This is all anonymized foot traffic data through a platform called Placer AI. And it basically says when people come to downtown, where are they going, how long are they staying, and then where are they sort of traversing to. So we track all of this for special events, but we can also do it for any business downtown. Maybe they're doing a special and they want to see how long people hung around or where they went before and after. This is great information. It really has amplified where people are moving from and to in the downtown core. It's been a great asset to have this information. You can see everything's on the trend up in downtown. And Nathan, hot off the presses today, this I found was a very interesting stat. Some of this information on downtown is visits from non-residents and non-employees to downtown Reno has increased year over year for the past 3 years. The data also indicates that singles and starters Young singles starting out and some starter families living a city lifestyle make up an increasingly large share of Reno's visitor base. So even the demographics of folks coming to town is shifting. We track all developments in downtown, everything from when they first put a shovel in the ground till they do their ribbon cutting that it's open. Track it all, report on it all. Again, our website is a wealth of information. So if you want to know about any development, it's all on there. Social media, we're on all of them other than TikTok. Please no. And then questions.
Shonda Golden for the record. Thank you for your presentation. It's exciting to see downtown clean up and get better. I've had friends that are in metal bands. This was years ago before COVID, and they're like, dude, your downtown is so scary. And I'm like, you're in a metal band. Like, how is Reno scary for you? But so I think that's wonderful. As someone who loves photography, I'm on Instagram and I see all the young people out at night enjoying downtown Reno, which is fantastic because that's what's so great about being young, right? You can stay out really late and have a good time. So bravo to you. I do have a question though about this particular program. Is there any way that this can be expanded out to I don't know, Paradise Park?
Great question, and a question we get asked with some regularity.
Yes.
So here's what we will say. We are the only business improvement district in the state of Nevada. And we are only 7, 8 years old now, which is, we're young. We're a very young business improvement district. Most of the bids across the nation are about 20, 30 or older years old. And I'll give you an example, Seattle has 14 business improvement districts, and you can customize them to the neighborhood. Maybe the university has a separate one, maybe a neighborhood has a different one, maybe a downtown business has a different. So we can't change the parameters or the footprint of where our business improvement district is, but other districts can create one. So we share that information, how to go about doing that, what's involved with it. We get asked quite frequently, can you go a little bit further to the east, 4th? Can you go a little bit further past Keystone? Can you go into Midtown? We always say we wish we could, but we can't. We would have to dissolve this entire business improvement district and start over, and that was years of work. So you have to look at creating sort of bids where they're needed in the style of what the neighborhood needs. This bid was formed not only for safety, cleanliness, homeless issues, et cetera, and marketing and economic development. You might find that going past Keystone to the west doesn't need marketing or economic development. They only want some additional cleaning or safety, et cetera. So they can be very customized based upon the neighborhood.
Thank you. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Dalton D. Kaysen for the record. I just have a comment. My friend and I, we play music a lot on 4th Street, and we were just driving the other day, and it's just we were amazed. It's remember 10 years ago when this was just filthy, and now we had a hard time finding a piece of trash. And I always see the ambassadors around. It's great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The ambassadors are incredible. They do they have a tough job. I
Oh,
gotta tell you, they got a
definitely.
tough job, but they do a great job. Thank you.
Maya Johnson for the record. I was really happy to see pictures of Broadhead Park in your presentation. I am particularly interested in the state of that park. As a neighborhood resident, I'd like to ask you what I should be doing to help you guys succeed in your mission to keep everything together, because if I see an issue in the park, which is unfortunately pretty often, I don't always know whether I should file something with Reno Direct or call dispatch or try to get in touch with DRP somehow. So I guess, could you give me kind of a feel for how or when I might want to engage DRP instead of or in addition to Reno Direct or dispatch if I see an issue in the park? I mean, I know, I think the park tends to, it's kind of in this weird corner. So sometimes it doesn't always get noticed first, as opposed to something on Virginia Street or 4th Street. We get graffiti a lot. We get fires a lot. It's what happens. But I'd like to know what I can do or what I should do to just help in the mission of keeping that park in areas like that maintained.
Thank you very much for having eyeballs on that park. I would say, first off, we have in your packet that we gave you as our hotline, 775-313-4080. You can call it 24/7. So we can come out and do the initial assessment. If you see a fire, call 911, any kind of fire. If you see any sort of crime being committed, please call 911. But if you see issues of trash or potential encampments or somebody that needs a wellness check, you can call us first. And if it's something that's maybe a broken trash can or something on the path itself that requires a City of Reno repair, we'll pass that on. So you can contact us first, and then we can pass that on. If it's a park maintenance issue, you see sprinklers that are out, you can always send that to Reno Direct. But feel free to call us. We get people to the right spot all the time. So, and we answer 24/7.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mike Steedman for the record. Thank you. The blue carpet thing, I've gone to a few of those. That's been really wonderful. Met Nathan there. He's done a wonderful job. We had a nice, fun discussion. And I think he's doing a great job, and thank you for everything. I like the flowers downtown. It'd be nice if there's more flowers and better trees than a little thing that doesn't do anything. If you go down to downtown Sacramento, you can have bigger trees that don't wreck the sidewalks. Just for you guys to push the natures to be. It would be nice if you pushed that there would be more police downtown, because you guys ambassadors can only do so much. And I've been around and I've chased people down, and as you know, but the police need to be more part of that. And I think they shove stuff off on you guys, and they shouldn't be able to do that. It's really nice that the railroad's finally coming around and taking care of their business. I think that's wonderful. Would like to know when your meetings are more, so anybody on this board, because it's really part of Ward 1, can come to the meetings and see what's going on. And I think that would be very beneficial for both of us. So if we could find out, I think anybody on the board should go for a walk on the river at noon would be wonderful, not at 1 a.m. And really, thanks for everything you guys are doing. Oh, I don't think I still have gotten a trash can on 4th and Valley yet.
We'll have to check, because I know we added.
I've only been bagging for 15 years, 20 years.
Is that a pun about bagging? That's funny. Nathan, actually, we have a map that has the grid of all the trash cans, so we'll check into that.
Maybe it has, but I don't think.
Yeah, I know we added, like I said, we kind of went out and picked a number of different locations. So
That's
and I'll make
wonderful.
sure that the entire board gets information about, if you want to come along a city walk with us, about when we have our board meetings, about all the different times you can interface with us. We do have meetings. We used to have a quarterly kind of a group meeting where everybody could come together, all of downtown, to talk about business improvement district stuff. What we found with that was the issues of the brewery district were vastly different than the residents of downtown. And it became a conflict of time, kind of, and subject matter of interest. And so we broke them up. And so we now we do a river walk, we do a brewery district, we do a resident, we break them up, we do the arts and nonprofits. So we have those as well.
Okay.
So we'll make sure you guys get all those.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. After that, C2, we are moving on to a presentation by Grant Denton, presentation on the causes and complexities of homelessness in Reno.
Grant Denton, for the record. My name is Grant Denton. I'm the founder of the Karma Box Project, and I have a master's degree in homeless solutions from UNR. I'm just joking. There's no such thing. I remember there's no real expert on homelessness. I remember when I started Karma Box and do a nonprofit, my first contract was at Broadhead Park. And the only job was because it was saturated there. You remember? From behind the Aces ball field all the way to Sutro, there was anywhere from 250 to 300 people camping there, and the structures would undulate. It would depend. Maybe there's a fire, and when one fire goes up, 4 tents go up. And a lot of the fires weren't heating fires. They were conflict resolution fires. right? You steal my bike, I let your stuff on fire. So there's these behavioral and environmental issues. My only job was to kind of school people, do outreach around the Portland Loo. The city wanted to make sure that this Portland Loo stayed a toilet and not anything else. But because of the population there, there were chances that it could turn into something else, like actually in Portland. If you ever went to Portland, you would see the outcome of some of these that were unchecked and unmanaged. And I remember I would come to meetings, I would sit here and I would sit over here and I would sit in places in the meetings, and I would see people come up and bang their fists at the city. Remember that? Who bang their fists at the city and they're like, Reno, homelessness, Reno, terrible job, county, bad job. And I'm like, wow, we must be doing a really terrible job. And then I realized, like, I haven't seen any other cities, right? And I was curious where this homeless utopia was. We're like, where's this city that's got it all figured out? And so I started making connections. I joined a coalition. I started traveling places. I've been to 13 different cities and have been able to talk to leaders, business owners. And when you go here, when you go to these different cities, of course, there's different ways of solving this problem. In some ways, right, there's always the question, right, when it comes to solving a problem. It's do it right, do it wrong, do nothing at all, right? And each one has a different outcome. And there were cities that were doing nothing at all. There were cities that were doing it wrong, right? And then and I really haven't found one that's been doing it right, right? There's different cities that do different things right. And so when you start digging in, and this is where I actually love doing this, is that when you start digging in, you're like, where does homelessness come from? That's when things start getting interesting and we can start answering questions, and everything is related to something else. It's very complex, right? And we all know this. But we break it down to, like, there's two different kinds of homelessness, overarching. There's situational, right? It's pretty simple. A situation happened, rent was raised, your partner moved out, you weren't able to cover the bills by yourself. Or there's behavioral. And in behavioral, there's a bunch of different subcategories, right? So it's all these bubbles and overlapping bubbles. And so when you look into the history of homelessness, it can inform us on today. So I'm just going to run through real quick what homework that we've done. I have a historian that I work with, and I'll even share a little bit of information about how Reno was leading the country in homeless solutions at one time. We were written about, they spoke about us, and we were actually doing really well. And it roots back to Broadhead Park. Which is interesting because that's where I started my homeless solution journey. If you can't figure out how to use this thing, that speaks volumes. Is it me? Got it. So definition of homeless: don't have a home or place of permanent residence. So if you look at the beginning of time, we started out actually homeless, right? Beginning of humanity. This home thing is relatively new for us in the timeline of humanity. It's rather new. And so you look at, like, back in the day, even before biblical times, it was just the beggars, right? It was folks that needed certain kind of help. Because if you look at homelessness now, you have situational homelessness, which never happened, right? Because families actually took their folks in. It never happened. But then there was mental illness. Did they not have mental illness in Mesopotamian times? They actually did. But how they viewed it was more of a spiritual failing, right? So somebody was possessed by demons, right? And so they would put this on the churches, and so the churches had to manage them. And then you look at, there was definitely alcohol back then, but the families were responsible for their relative, right? So if it was me, my mom, like the village would shame my mom for not managing me properly. And so it was like the families were kind of managing it. And so, and back then, and there was also deserving and undeserving, right? Back then it was the widows, orphans. Debtors were one of them, but then the other two were vets, people that came back from war and were injured. So these were people that were worthy of help. And then seniors were worthy of help, and they were usually taken care of by their families. So we didn't really have, like, any homeless problems back then. Of course, Egypt, this was a really working class, believe it or not. They built pyramids. So then you look into Israel, had the landowners were prohibited from charging interest on loans to poor people. And debts were forgiven every 7 years. Your debt was forgiven, no matter what. And that was also under the idea that we all trust each other. We knew that you were actually going to try. You weren't going to try to burn the system. People were a lot more trusting. And then the Romans were more. They started introducing like social answers, right? More social watering holes, latrines, the fountains, baths. Everything was like where they started to introduce this like social idea where we're all kind of helping each other out. Now you don't hear. The word homeless actually didn't come around until the 1900s. It's relatively new. So you look in more modern times in 1850, homelessness was around the time of the gold rush. Like we lived in tents. That was it. That's how we lived. We set up a tent. We started mining, and these were the gold rush guys. Now the Civil War is what really like tipped it off for America, right? So around wartime, civil, revolutionary, things like that. And now we're just sticking to America. Around war times, that was after the war, that was when homelessness would spike. It would spike because people were displaced. And it would also spike because people were injured and couldn't work anymore. Now, the people that were displaced, if you look at the Civil War, do you know why they were called the battle-born state? Yeah? Because our silver was funding this war, yeah? And it was funding it, it was getting there because of the railroads, right? So the railroads were, we know that railroads and homelessness is kind of synonymous, right? And right after the Civil War, there were these people that were displaced and they were trying to go home. And so they were homeward bound, which short for homeward bound is hobos, right? So they would get on these trains and they were doing agricultural work throughout the country. They could still work, they were capable, they were doing things. Now, if you look in the classism of homelessness, what would happen, and they weren't a bother, they didn't really bother folks. They'd go somewhere, they'd go to these emergency shelters and they'd go there for three things: rest, recovery, and reentry. And they were able to stay at these shelters or stay in these homes, earn some money, and then move to the next phase. So they didn't really cause problems, because when you ask about homelessness, you're like, well, or anything, you have to identify, okay, what's the problem? Before we know how to solve it, we have to identify what's the problem. And there wasn't really causing any problems until they would get too old to work. They weren't having, they weren't saving any money, they weren't building any retirement, so they would get too old to work. And that's where the term bum came from, because they went from working class, agriculturally traveling across the US, if they didn't go home, to staying in a community who had to pay for them, right? And so then they labeled them bums. And then in that, there was also the tramps. And the tramps were like the people that were kind of doing this for a living. Who ever heard of Jack Kerouac? Right, Go West. Jack was a tramp, and he was a cool tramp, and people read that and was like, that sounds great, And so there was this lifestyle attached to it too. And then, and so after that, you get into the Panic of 1893. That had to do with silver. Remember, there was a lot of fraud around silver, and so it's messed the market up. Catastrophe in 1995 was the fire in San Francisco, and it was so populated that it caused such a huge problem, the increased homelessness. You get to the Great Depression, yes, we know. And then the Reagan administration. A lot of people, ever since so you didn't hear anything about mental illness. They can't find a single article written where they put homelessness and mental illness in the same sentence until after the 80s. We all know why, and we can pick that apart, but we can't just point fingers at Reagan. Everyone's like, Reagan did this, kind of, right? So if you look at solutions to homelessness, and I remember when I first started doing this work, people would ask me like what my politics were, and I'm like, politics? What do politics have to do with drug addiction and homelessness, right? I've never met a drug that gave a crap what I believed in. Drugs are they don't discriminate, right? And so I was like, what does that mean? And then when you get into it, you're like, oh, that's what that means, when you start learning where the money's coming from and other things. And we know that there's two sides, right? There's a far one side and there's a far other side, right? And on the far right side, the solution to homelessness has always been a bootstrap solution, right? It's always rooted in a really hard, rigid logic, right? Well, if you get off drugs and you get a job, then you'll not be homeless anymore. And that's logical, right? And then there's a far left side that would always say, well, let's just love them until they figure it out. And that doesn't work either, right? And both of these solutions are rooted in aha moments, right? Lock them up till they figure it out, love them until they figure it out. And neither one has ever really worked based on policies that have been laid out, right? And if you look at it, like the only solution would be what? A marriage of the two, right? Love is what wakes you up in the morning, and logic is what solves problems. And so we need a combination of the two. You got to love folks enough to go hard for them, and you got to be logical enough to, and what we do is we're essentially, us that work with the homeless, we're essentially the parents of the community, right? We parent this population, and it's tough because I have a kid. He's here now. See, and it's the same thing, right? You'll get pushback a lot, and the idea is that we're trying to get a human to change, right? Our only job as homeless providers is to create better humans, right? So we're in the people growing business, and so we're not just in this homeless gig. We have to start looking at it a little bit differently. But when you look at all these things that are causing homelessness, it's not just the things, it's how we react to them, if that makes sense, right? And so, of course, the housing crash in 2009 and then COVID and all these things contributed. Now, so what we did was, and this is, I just excited to share this because we can start looking at what works and what doesn't work. And we did an evaluation on all these things. And when we started putting all these things together, you realize that you're missing a lot of stuff. There's not enough room on this to cover all the things. And so we tried to be like, so what are we picking? And I want to real quick talk about right before the Civil War. We've all heard of asylums, right? And we all attribute our mental health, our street mental health issue to asylums being closed down, which is true. But, and where we went wrong and what's not mentioned on this is that asylums were actually one of the best methods to solving the mental health issue. And it was when they were run by the Quakers. If you look into the history of asylums, it started in the 1840s in York, right? And in York, a Quaker, a female Quaker died under terrible conditions in an asylum. And so the Quakers were like, we're going to take this over. And the Quakers started building these asylums in England. Then they brought them here, and their model was the successful model in the history of mental illness. There was no medicine. There's no medicine back then, right? And what they did was they actually, and they had an 80% success rate, is they had a really good staff to client ratio, which means it was like one person for 10 clients. And they would actually do things with them. They meditated with them. They prayed with them. They took them out. They, took them on little journeys and had art projects and all the things. And this was one of the most successful asylum in the history of, the solutions to mental illness in the history of mental illness. And in the 70s, 1970, they tried to do it again, but it was shot down. And there's always controversy around pharmacies and all the things that, that whole industry, but it was related to that. They actually opened up 2 houses in 1970 that actually was putting folks back into the community and doing well, and they weren't using any drugs. And if you look at the timeline there, you have the Civil War. Now, settlement houses and lodging, we'll get into what that was. Now, and then you look at when drugs are coming out, heroin and cocaine, growth of poor farms. So when it comes to poor farms, around this time, if we do a little homework, we identified that right over here at Broadhead Park, Washoe County opened up one of the first poor farms in the country. And the poor farms that were designed because folks that didn't get didn't save for retirement or anything like that they'd be sentenced there. It was like almost a sentence, and they would send them to the county commission, and the county commission would sentence them to go to the poor farm. But they would go see a nurse first, and the nurse and the doctors were going to see what work are they capable of doing, right? And so they would and if somebody was, even if they were an alcoholic or an addict, they still sent them there, and that would remedy their alcoholism, addiction. And it was one of the most successful poor farms in America. If you go to Broadhead Park and you go 40 blocks one way and then in down east, that's where it encompassed. There's actually 2 homes right on Broadhead Park and Park, where Park Street comes in. Those 2 homes that are on the corner there are original homes from when they used to have the poor farm. And And there's reasons why it was shut down, but and the similar reasons to why all poor farms were shut down. And then you start moving the Food and Drug Act. Up until the Food and Drug Act, you could buy cocaine like at Sears and Roebuck. Like it was like legal, and it was in the drinks and all the things. You could heroin, everything was legal. And then that's when they started investigating it, and then you get the Narcotic Act, and that's when it became illegal. Then around 1937, they started closing the poor farms. The Housing Act, which was really successful. World War II, and I know like I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but like World War II was actually caused bigger issues because collectively after World War II, that's when people stopped trusting government. Before then, we used to whatever government we're all Americans, and then after World War II, there was this mistrust of the government. Now, what we didn't put in there is in 1953. So John Kennedy, who's ever heard of the Rosemary Kennedy story? So this is what contributed to the asylums being shut down, is what happened to Rosemary Kennedy. John put through the Health Care Act, and it was approved. If you ever listen to the speech in the Health Care Act, it's like, you're like, yeah, man, that's it. That's the answer. But 3 months later, he was assassinated. So the funding didn't go through. And then Reagan eventually picks it up in 81. And that's, the Community Health Care Act started. He picks it up in 81. And then Homeless Assistance Act, Housing First. Now, those are the solutions. And if you look at the rise in drugs, we didn't put fentanyl in there or carfentanil or any of that. But all these throughout, like the beginning, drugs, even the drugs that were supposed to help us, right? Thorazine, benzos have called. So once Thorazine was invented and came on the market, it actually disability. The idea was that we do these drugs for the disabled folks so they can start functioning. Disability is increased with the introduction of every SSRI, anti-psychotic drug, neuroleptic, all these things. It's actually disability actually increases over the course of time, and that just puts us to where we're at. And if you look. And we're going to have to, and just keep in mind that like every one of these things, not one of them had a real positive impact, right? The solutions, right? There was a couple of them that did, but as the population grows, homelessness grew, right? So we can't say, well, it's just grown, homelessness is growing. And a lot of that has to do with what we also are going to add in there with welfare reform, how we handle welfare, right? And I'm going to give you a quick example of something right now, right? So we get our job as homeless service providers is to move somebody from a condition of homelessness, and this is when we're successful, we move someone from a condition of homelessness to a condition of extreme poverty, right? That's a win for us. And then when they're in this condition of poverty, a lot of them are making a certain amount because they have to get subsidies, right? So they're making a certain amount of money where they're qualified for, only to pay 30% of their income. They're qualified for food stamps, insurance. They can get bus passes, things like this. Now, if that person came to work for me and they did really great, they're doing really well and good enough to give promote them and give them a raise. Once they get that raise and that promotion, they lose all their benefits at once, which means their value, their net value actually decreases. So the way that welfare is set up right now, it actually, I don't want to say it incentivizes, but it doesn't incentivize growth. So we've had people that come work for us that don't want the promotion, don't want the raise, because once they do, they're actually going to make less. So and if you look at that, and people are like, is homelessness going to increase? For sure. Absolutely. The reason it's going to increase is because there's only one river out, or, if you have this homeless lake, you got one river out and two rivers in, the lake is always going to grow. Does that make sense? So you have new homelessness and then you have recidivism. So as long as, and this is, even if we get really good at outreach, at sheltering, at programming with people, even if we get really good, the homeless population will increase as long as we don't reform welfare. And I'm not like being political, that's just what it is. Yeah. See that, Nate? You got to listen to me, guy. Nate's mentor, by the way. So I'm going to run through this real quick because there's so much. But that's the timeline of drugs and how drugs have impacted America over the course of time, right? Started with morphine, heroin, cocaine, Food and Drug Act, and all these things, that are contributing to it. Meth, and we don't have fentanyl on there. The fentanyl follows up. And if you look at any opioid, so data proves that the most abused drug is alcohol. Yes. And, but with that, the data that came from Vegas Stronger, which sees 100 people a day in those doors, with that, it also proves that meth is the second leading drug. Now, if you look over the, people are like, well, fentanyl's a thing. Well, fentanyl is just it's like a trend, right? So we've had opium, heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil, xylazine, and all these new exciting drugs that are being put out. And the statistics show, and there's a reason for that, is stats show that when a drug becomes more deadly, sales increase. So people are buying more drugs. That people will buy more of the drug that's more likely to kill you once it starts. Once people start overdosing on it, why? Because it's cheaper and it takes you a little bit further, right? So if you know the drug's potent, you're gonna buy it, right? And so this is what we found. That's why they keep reinventing new drugs, is because we build the tolerance to it. People are more cautious of it, so we need a new drug to become more strong, and so on and so on. Ongoing alcohol. This is the toxicology of folks that are currently addicted. And again, we didn't put fentanyl in there. And then these are all the solutions over the course of time that we've tried to do to solve homelessness. And I want you to read the settlement housing, or if you can, so these houses were set up in like urban areas. The first one was in Chicago, and they provide temporary housing, meals, education, and job training, right? So I'm going to compare that, right? And it was great outcomes. And I want to compare that to our Housing First initiative that came out, where we're just, because we wanted to solve when you look at the homelessness, you're like, well, what's the problem? And back then, we just wanted to solve the homeless optics problem. As long as we don't see them. If you don't see the homeless, is it a problem? And so what we would do is, instead of building shelters, and shelters are supposed to be homeless triage, right? They're not supposed to be a destination. You're just supposed to go there, be triaged just like an emergency room, identify what your issue is, and send you out to this program, whatever the program is. And they stopped building shelters around 2002 and so on, because money was directed to houses. Well, the housing market's kind of thin, right? And we can't put every individual in a house. And the problem was we were putting folks in houses without teaching them how to sustain the houses, right? So there's the get the stuff and there's the keep the stuff. And they're getting the stuff, but we weren't teaching them how to keep the stuff. And the issue with that is that it turned into property managers were being frustrated that we were putting people in their houses that weren't prepared. So that would cause, by inviting friends over, maybe the house would get damaged. They would have to go through the process of evicting them. And then property managers are like, never again. I'm never going to accept those vouchers again because of this. And it wasn't just, so you look at who's to blame, right? And when it comes to this model, it's not just the homeless folks, it's us, right? So when you look at solving a problem, you have to identify what your role was in creating it. And so when it comes to helpers, us nonprofits and folks like that, we were trying to solve this homeless optics problem by putting them in houses, and then that's when our job is done. In San Francisco right now, they have 80 hotel buildings that are used for SROs. These are the Housing First models where they put them in there. Who's ever been by Union Square or Market Square? You see all the people out there? 25% of those people have a house. They have a place. They just store their stuff there and hang out with their boys on the street. So you really didn't solve that problem, right? And another 30% of the people that have overdosed last year in San Francisco overdosed inside their house. So they're isolating. You didn't solve a problem. We just kind of moved it and gave it to someone else, or just made it out of sight. And so you look at all these things, and this is more recent, and some of them are good. Some of them we benefit from, but the overarching was more about, solving the homeless optics problem. And that's why we're at where we're at today. Most Homelessness, if it starts out nowadays, if it started out situational, it ends up behavioral. Because the longer you're on the streets, the more likely you are to stay on the streets. It's difficult to work somebody, and our prioritization of how we help people. Like if there's one house, who should get the house first? There's a lineup of people for the house. Who should get the house first? Should it be the single mom? Should it be the senior? Seniors, 44% of the residents at the CARES campus are seniors, 44%. And a lot of that's not behavioral. A lot of that's they're getting priced out of their benefits. So it starts out situational, but if they're there long enough, it'll become behavioral. And so we got to ask, well, who should get that house first? Should it be the senior? Should it be the single mom with a kid? Should it be the severely mentally ill person? Should it be the drug addict? Should it be a co-occurring, right? And so these are questions that we have to ask. I'm not saying we have all the solutions, but these are the important points to make. Isn't he? There you go. So if you look here in what success and what didn't work, the overarching one that worked was settlement houses from the 1800s, where we would put people in social housing, but offer education, offer work, job training with the goal of moving them to the next phase. And these are people that are, of course, employable. Families would stay in there, people that are employable, and then you start separating the subsects. There needs to be mental health housing, there needs to be pre-employment training, there needs to be all this, but one magic bullet never solved anything. It's the ones that have the more, and we say wraparound services. You'll hear that a lot in homelessness, but people say it without really knowing what it means. It feels good. It feels like a hug when you say wraparound. It feels like yeah, wraparound, man. We don't even know what it is, right? And it takes a lot, and there has to be a perfect setting for that as well. And so that's the settlement housing portion, why it works. And you get in, like, this is in Nevada, like each one that grew it up. Like, we look at hippies, it's kind of funny, but there was a culture. Don't be mad at hippies, but there was a culture then that kind of pushed getting off the grid and, the summer of love and all the things. And then in the 80s, it really spiked because of the mental health and things like that. And there was also zero tolerance. Like Nixon declared a war on drugs, and then Reagan did zero tolerance. So you got guys that got a dime bag of weed getting locked up for 5 freaking years, and then when they get out, when you lock people up, you run the risk of institutionalizing people, right? So it should be a correction model, but instead we were just locking folks up without thinking. I've done a little bit of time, and the scariest thing when you do time is getting out, right? It's because I'm really good staying here and programming well. I'm not good at the real world. And so there was no preparation for the outside world. And then, so this is how we look at the solution. It's a 4-pronged solution. Other places, I encourage you to look at the Alberta model. Alberta, Canada, I think has one of the most successful homeless solutions when it comes to their model. They have a 4-pronged model. It's intervention, or it's prevention, which starts at schools, but they also use stigma, which is interesting because people are like, no stigma, no stigma. They don't stigmatize the individual, they stigmatize behavior, right? And so they actually they push messaging campaigns that stigmatize theft and stigmatize, leaving a park in disarray and all the trash. And so they stigmatize these things. So they stigmatize behavior, and then, of course, educating the youth. And then there's intervention. The intervention on the homeless side would be, how do we get somebody if it's drugs, right? It's why we're homeless. Then eventually someone will commit a crime. They do it through the justice system. I'm a product of that intervention. You can go to prison or you can go to rehab. What do you want to do? I chose rehab. It worked out. And then there's treatment, right? We have to have enough treatment beds. Neoma was saying the right now. We want to help people right now. The problem with right now is that we'll go to folks that are on the streets, me, ambassadors, and we're like, hey man, whenever you're ready, we can get you to treatment. And you do that every day, same guy. Whenever you're ready, treatment. Whenever you're ready, and they're not ready. And then one day they're ready. And you're like, oh crap. Can you give me 3 days? Because we're not ready, right? Because we don't have right now services. And that is where you overpromise, underdeliver. And that is why people don't trust us. So if we're going to do all this treatment things, we have to have beds. We have to have beds to go to. Right now, it's just like basic economics, it's supply and demand. Right now, when you don't have systems in place, like ordinances that challenge people not to live on the streets, you're not going to have a demand for treatment. Because if they're living on the streets, why would they want to go to treatment? Because that's what we're used to. So there has to be a push on the streets. There has to be a challenge. It has to be more difficult to live on the streets than it is to live in a shelter or go to treatment, right? And it's not because we're being unfair or it's because we care about folks, right? I can tell you I've made my son uncomfortable a lot of times because I give a crap. You know, and like I said, we're the parents of the streets. We're in the people growing business, and sometimes it's difficult. We have to challenge folks. I don't know if anybody's ever been on a diet before. Who's been on a diet? Was it pretty hard? Yeah, and that's just broccoli, right? We're trying to change whole humans, and it's going to take a lot. And if you want, I can send you this. We're going to be updating it with things that we forgot. But these are all if you were to package a solution, you can look at the Alberta model. Ours is a little different because this is just, it goes into more detailed. But yeah, so that's our solution. And hopefully you have questions. I know it was a fire hose, because that's how I do stuff. But
So Dalton D. Kaysen for the record. First off, thank you. I don't have any questions because it seems like it was really extensive and you hit a lot of things and it was a lot of important information. And it's clear that you are passionate about what you do and, want to help people. So I think you covered everything from my perspective. So no questions from me. Anybody else?
Shonda Golden for the record. Mental institutions, will those be coming back?
So in Salt Lake right now and in Vancouver, Canada, they're lobbying for involuntary lock. So if you look up, I can send you an article. In Salt Lake, they're building a 600-bed facility that's for involuntary commitment. And the problem with that, they're going to have legal problems, right? What are the legal problems going to be? They're going to be what determines what will make me be able to take someone off the streets, right? They had these issues years ago where husbands would commit their wives to asylums once a month. They did that. And that is why they're like, dude, you can't. They ever say you're going to be committed. Well, it was because people did that and we took advantage of the system.
Right.
And so to avoid that, we have to have a clear definition of what harm to self is, right? So it has to be a level of harm to self and harm to others. We can define harm to others, yeah, when we hurt somebody, but what's harm to self? Right? Is it a cigarette? Like smoking cigarettes is harm to self. Is it an overdose? How many overdoses would determine harm to self? Does that make sense? And so we have to define as a community or as a country, because this is going to be a big deal. They're going to start putting people in there and lawsuits are going to come up. And this is what's going to determine what harm to self looks like. I can name 20 people right now that need to be taken off the streets. They're serving a death sentence right now because we want to give them 100% body autonomy. And we have to look at like with drug addiction too, they're like, they should be able to make choices. And I'm like, just know that every time you overdose and every day that you do drugs, you do damage to your brain, right? So we're poor choice makers to begin with, and they're expecting us to make a logical choice about getting off the street. So there does have to be something, and they are starting at Salt Lake. If you look up Salt Lake's model, they're building a 600-bed facility. And Vancouver, Canada is actually looking into legislation for involuntary. I was just at a summit and they're talking about pushing involuntary help.
Thank you. With Housing First, because before it was, we're going to provide you a place to stay, but you can still use. Is that something that?
So there was a new executive order that came down. It was involving housing units right after the healthcare executive order. You guys remember this, right? So if you're willing, so we'll take that. Now there's what they call a policy gap, where one doesn't really serve the other one. And there's an executive order that says that if mental illness or drug addiction is the cause of your homelessness, then you don't get to be housed unless you address that, right? And so it's pretty vague. So what does that mean? Does that mean you have to go to treatment first? Does it mean that you can get the house, but you have to go to treatment while you're in the house? Is that a requirement of having it? Does it mean that, and how is that monitored? Who oversees you? So there's a lot of questions, but money from the federal government, we have this NOFO grant that just came out, is more and more going towards transitional housing outreach and more higher barrier places. They just opened higher barrier treatment places or facilities. They just opened an emergency shelter in San Francisco. That's the country's first. That's not it's not religious, right? It's the country's first sober shelter, and it's full. People are going there. The idea behind low barrier is that, well, you're not going to get that guy to go because he has to clean up, and understandably so. Like when you look at like people that are on the streets, and life isn't that consistent, and life isn't that great. Your housing's not consistent, work's not consistent, relationships not consistent. What shows up every time is drugs. Every time I use, I get high, and every time I drink, I get drunk. So there's a level of consistency and control when it comes to drugs that's going to be difficult to separate people from. And so there has to be a middle, and they're actually filling the gap right now. Now, if they build 2 or 3 more, eventually they won't be full. But right now they have full beds of people that want to get sober, that want to get off the streets. And so they're moving more towards these things, and funding is angling more towards those things. The problem that we have to look out for is that the pendulum doesn't swing too far, right? So if you look at the timeline of solutions, it's been swinging too far, and then we always overcorrect, and we swing by the middle, we don't stay there. And so we're trying, like, it's hopeful that we don't overcorrect and require everybody to pull their bootstraps up, because some people just can't. You have to find, some solutions when it comes to capability.
So like at the CARES campus, is it encouraged, or do you have 12-step meetings that come in?
So it is encouraged, right? But you can't mandate. You can't say you got to go to 12-step. So what we've done, they've put 12-step meetings there, but people weren't going. So why aren't people going? Part of that has to do with how you promote it, how you push it. There was for example, and I know there's a guy, his name's John Harris, David Harris. He was a pro skater back in the day, and he was talking about, and he opened up this skate park for kids, underserved kids in Vancouver. And he talks about Andy Anderson. Andy Anderson was the first skater to ever wear a helmet. Back in the day, it wasn't cool to wear helmets. And he said that Andy Anderson was just a cool guy, but he wore helmets every day. Wearing a helmet. And eventually kids wanted to wear helmets because he made it cool. And they weren't forced to do it, like, wear a helmet, kid. The point I'm bringing up is that there has to be enough of a push and enough people going, and it has to be there long enough and consistently enough to people who show up. It's not mandatory, and we've tried it. We just got to really promote it and push it. And there has to be a culture shift inside. This is a culture thing. It's making rules kind of pushes, and not that you shouldn't have rules, but it's like, how do you do it? How do you address it? And so, yes, we are doing that. And I'm sure if I show up, or if you show up, it's going to be cool. So, especially you. So, yeah, we are pushing towards that. Yep.
Yeah, I got more of a statement, less of a question. It's I like to say it's reassuring to hear the comments from you about services, not handouts.
Mhm.
As a community, more and more people are tired of seeing just the handouts. They want to see the services to get them back up on their feet, because the whole attitude is, why am I paying for you to sit on your butt all day and not do anything?
Yeah.
And so it's reassuring as a community member to see that, the focus is more going towards solutions and services, not handouts.
Yeah. If you look at it like it's the metaphor, right? We're all in a boat. We have a destination, healthy community, and everybody's rowing except for Carl. And Carl is not only not rowing, but he's rowing in the opposite direction. And everybody on the boat that is actually having to apply themselves to contribute to this group is going to get frustrated with Carl. They're going to build resentments. And anybody that's helping Carl, they're going to build resentments against them. The best idea isn't to put Carl in a lifeboat and throw him behind and drag him because we don't see him, right? The best idea is that we work with Carl as best we can to get him back rowing again in the right direction. And somebody that's not rowing because they're incapable, sure, we get it, because that's how we help each other. But and hopefully nobody's name is Carl. But yeah, so that's the gig. And so that's where resentments come from, is because we're all pulling our weight. The idea with programs is that we use taxpayer dollars to create taxpayers, right? And that might take a little bit of time. Two of the biggest questions you get when somebody comes to the shelter is, how long does it take and how much does it cost? Well, that depends on who you're working with, how long they were on the streets, what's their real issue, do we have the services provided, do we not have the service provided, what do we call a win, and when is our job done, right? So there's all these questions, and folks like to hear the magic number 6 months. 6 months to grow a human? Let's go, and it doesn't really work like that. So we have to start looking at like not doing it at all and not doing it wrong. Because so far we've been doing it wrong. Like, what does doing it right look like? And where are we, if you look at it, what programs can we use? Like, what triage can we use on individuals to identify what their real issue is? What programs are help them? And when it comes to programs, most cities that are successful have what they call an ecosystem of tiered mobility, right? To where there's multiple tiers in programming. So when somebody fails, they don't fail to the street, they fail to lower tiers. And we have a no street policy, where instead of kicking out someone to the street, we kick them to another program, right? We don't have the kind of help you need, brother. You'll have to go to a different program. And so we have this ecosystem of tiered mobility. And this is like what we have to start moving towards, because just like any investment, right? When it comes to us, we have a SROI, a social return on investment. And so if it's not getting someone to be self-sufficient again, because some people can't be, it's getting them to cost the rest of us less, and getting them to where they're successful in the terms that they can be successful. Does that make sense?
I have a question, Shonda Golden, for the record. So, and for the record, Grant and I are friends. So, anyways, I was at the shop. I was at Bizarre Guitar, and it seems like Paradise Park just got overrun again. Now, I know the city has put in bike lanes, but there's campers there now. And so my question is, like, who's reinforcing those bike lanes? And I understand the police are understaffed. But where are all these new people coming from? Because, I mean, literally, they have camps. And my conversation with you always goes back to the children of that community, because I'm right by the elementary school. We also have the Volunteers of America, the seniors townhouse there. And so honestly, it was quite shocking to me today to see all of that, because it was like, where are they coming? Where did these people come from?
Yeah. So let's look at there are people that were like, so years ago when we first started doing all this, you look at the river was pretty bad, right? You remember the river, and then what happened? Then we got these river guys. They started cleaning that river up, and so where did they go? They went to the tracks. They went to the Wells Bridge. So once you get really good in one area, it sparks another area. And then now we're managing the tracks really well. So the businesses on 4th Street, we're seeing more folks, more transient. People by nature are transients. Folks come, folks go. And so when we get really good at certain places, it looks not so great in other places. Does it mean homelessness is increasing? Sure, homelessness will always increase, but how do we manage that? You look at again, we have a homeless service system that moves at the rate of willingness, right? So when they're ready, we're ready. Again, it's supply and demand. So there has to be a heavy demand. To solve that problem, the answer is that we have, and we do this along the tracks. We just got under contract with the city to manage the set of tracks. And historically in Reno, that set of tracks from Wells Bridge to Sutro were the worst when it comes to homelessness. And we've kept camps off of there for the last month. Not one tent gets up there and stays longer than 10 minutes. And it's because the streets, the tracks, the river will turn into whoever's there the most, right? So if I got my guys there monitoring the most, people are less likely to set up a tent. The longer someone's in a place, the more it belongs to them. And this is just what it is, right? It's about reclaiming public space. So, and it does cost a little bit. There'll have to be somebody at the park monitoring it over and over and over again. And I know there's like this you know, when it comes to reclaiming public space, it gets difficult, but there has to be a constant there, not just a once a week thing, because the longer someone's in a spot, the more it belongs to them. So if I show up every day, the conversation is a lot easier. And if I'm not showing up, right, we have relationships with the people on the streets. So if I walk by you and I see you on the street 10 times, 100 times, and every time I see you, I'm like, what's up, bud? What's up, bro? How you doing? And I know the folks, when I do have to tell them to follow a rule, they're more likely to work with me, right? Because if I only go somewhere to tell somebody to leave or to get off, then I'm the no guy, and then you're going to have a problem. It's a lot harder to have that conversation. So there needs to be constants there. And then we also need to start taking data on who is there. What's their gig? A lot of folks out there have income. They just need help getting it. A lot of folks out there with a few conversations, maybe 72, maybe 80, maybe whatever. If you keep tapping, the value of constantly moving and nudging folks is that we don't gain a lot of stuff, right? We keep our things limited, and there's going to be less trash. There's less behavioral issues, and folks are more likely to want to get help after a while. We've had folks come into the shelter that are like, dude, I'm done being moved. Cool. That works. Can we pull up the slides again? I wanted to show them something real quick. Oh crap, it's not on this one. Do you remember my first slides? Can we pull those up? I just wanted to pull up a barcode so that you guys can all scan it. We created a barcode that this also makes you guys kind of experts at what's available in the community. It has every homeless service on it, and it has a link to the website, but it also has, see that? That's what she accumulated in 3 months. Yeah, that's Betty. That's her son right there. They moved that camp. They ended up at that park in February. This is 3 months later. And those are all the things she accumulated. And you know how she accumulated that stuff? It's because people would ask her, how can I help you? And she wouldn't, I need an armoire. I need a dresser. How about some more tarp? Do you got propane? So it's when we do, this is just a little tidbit, but when you do ask people if they need help, it's help doing what? Staying put or getting out? So that's back in the day. This is one guy, if you look on top of the bed there's 4 mattresses, and those are mattresses that people brought out to him.
Shonda Golden, for the record, that's exactly what it's looking like now on Audi. It was shocking, Grant, when I tell you this. The city of Reno put up those beautiful art installations. They took down the bridge, and now it's like all of this, and they're all new. Like, I don't know who these people are.
Yep.
Because there's a couple of them that we know their names.
Yeah.
You know, but they come and go. But
Yeah.
this is what we're seeing there now, and it just like happened overnight.
And it's manageable. Like, something could have happened. There could have been a sweep somewhere else. There could have been this. There could have been. But as long as we have a Karma Box has a homeless response team, and we'll get calls from Clara. We'll get calls from the commissioners and council people, and we'll address things as fast as we can. We just don't have. We have to be able to we can on public property. We can say, hey man, we got to get going. We don't have any authority. When it comes to private party, we can work with the owners to be able to, we talked about that, right? You can have an MOU with them to be able to have some sort of authority on moving folks off the property. And that's just what it takes. This would have never got that big if he was constantly worked with. I'm not saying just move him, like work with him. Are you ready today, bro? Are you ready today? Do you know? And being able to help somebody when they're ready. That's right behind
Make
Ace.
sure for the record real quick.
Yeah.
You keep on saying, when you're ready, when you're ready. What's being done to help move them into that? Because I know, there's a couple of organizations that I volunteer with, and they try incentivizing them and all we're losing volunteers because all they're hearing from these people is, I don't care what you say. I don't care about your resources. When are you going to feed me and pay me?
Yeah.
And so is there any kind of push or any kind of way, or effort to get them to that point where they're willing to, as my grandfather used to say, move from hobo to bum, or from bum to hobo?
Yeah. So that's a tough one, right? So right now, the folks that are on our streets, it was like In the beginning, right when the shelter opened and right when I started doing this program, cleaning up the river, it was actually easy to house folks because there was some of the people that were on the streets just needed a platform for purpose, just needed to be reminded how to work. And then we started getting people off the street, started getting people into the shelter, into the safe camp, these things. But then there's the resistant ones, and there is service resistant folks. And the only thing that's the folks that are left over, because there are people out there that like really need help and want it. They just need a little bit of a nudge, and but some of it's going to be legal, right? And it has to be, not that homelessness is illegal, but there are components of homelessness that are illegal, right? So if I'm addicted and I don't have an income, I might take a catalytic converter or two, or I might take, get some copper. We'll show up to camps all the time and they're stripping copper. And so there is a criminal component. It's addressing that, using that criminal end of it. Now it's the justice system, right? Now it's the justice system. When somebody's in there on a drug related charge, don't just send them to jail, dude. It's mandate rehab, right? Or make it an option. Right? Me, it was 5 to 7 years in prison or rehab. I took the rehab, bro. And so it's justice system. It's also how we address our mental health issue when it comes to justice system. There's I don't want to get in the whole thing, but there's competency court that deems people incompetent of facing legal charges. And when somebody's deemed incompetent, there's nothing really that police can do, because they're going to go to jail and they're going to come right back out. Go to jail, come right back out, and not competent enough to face charges. And so there are some things that have to be remedied at a justice level, at other levels. But I believe that the folks that you're talking about, there just needs to be kind of a no bullshit policy with a little bit of grace, right? So we can't go back to zero tolerance, but we also kind of got to dig. There's a phrase that I use with my guys. It's do no harm, take no shit, right? We're not here to harm anybody, but sometimes you got to dig your heels in. Sometimes you got to be the parent, and so that's what because there's ideas that we should just lock everybody up. And all that's doing is clogging up. What's the largest mental health facility in every state? Jails, bro. Yeah, the jail. And so that's clogging up the jails. So you don't want to do that. We don't want to clog up the jails, but we also want to put people there that appropriately should be there. And how are they exiting? Are they exiting back to the streets that got them here, or are they going to programs? And so I think it wasn't a short answer, but I think the answer to that is how we deal with what happens next, right? So if we do ticket somebody and we do put them in jail, are they just going to do the time and come back? Because now we run the risk of institutionalizing somebody, or are we going to try to really reform them? So, yeah.
Shonda Golden for the record. I have a question in regards to the CARES campus. If you have someone that comes into CARES, is that person photographed? Do you have all that information? Because I've been hearing probably a little too much of late of other people saying that they've lost family members and they can't find them. Yeah. I mean, I've been down to the old campus, when I had tampons, and there's nothing worse than a mother looking for her child. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
here's where it gets dodgy, right? So when somebody comes in, we put them in the HMIS system. We do an intake on them. We find out where they're from, how long they've been on the streets. Is it a result of mental illness? When was the last time you were on the streets? What are your stints between homelessness? We do this not an evaluation. We do this intake on them. And then, yes, a picture is taken and they're given a clarity card. And everywhere they go for services that's related to HUD, right? Or related to homeless services or any kind of continuum of care, they have to scan this card. The problem is that if somebody were to come and say, is my kid here? We're not allowed to tell them, right? Because this is similar to HIPAA, is where this information is protected, right? So some people are escaping domestic abuse. Some people may even have warrants, and we have to be, in order to have low barrier, we can't do background checks, right? We accept everybody. And so there's this limit of information that protects the individuals that sometimes, if their family's looking for them, could do harm. And so it's hard to identify. 2 days ago, Saturday, I was at the CARES campus, and there's a
No, no.
Oh, so there's a Hispanic family out there and they had babies with them. And I'm like, what's up, man? I don't know if this is the place for your babies. And they're like, we're looking for my son. And he was a younger looking guy. He's in his 20s. And we couldn't tell him. I don't know if he was in there. I didn't recognize him. Maybe Eddie House, whatever. But he had his whole family there looking for him and nobody could tell him, you know? And so that's the downside of it.
We do coordinate though with RPD, so anytime somebody goes on a missing child or somebody's been abducted or trafficking, they coordinate with us and they share that photographic information. So then we become the eyes out on the street, then can say, we've recovered people that were missing or were being trafficked at different areas around downtown. So they kind of flip it. Once it's entered the law enforcement realm, we get notified of the individual and we'll report back.
And ambassadors are boots on the ground. So is our outreach. No, it's so like, and I'll send, have before sent pictures of folks that they were looking for. You can send it through other avenues, like going to the shelter. We can't give them that information. But if I know somebody's missing, I can give it to our outreach guys and be like, have you seen this person on the streets? And usually we have. Right? We've seen them somewhere and we know when the sweeps are coming and we know when camps are being moved. So we can get ahead of it that way, but you just can't go to the shelter and do it.
Shonda Golden for the record. So when they come to the campus, the CARES campus, and you can't do a background, that means you can't do that on a sex offender?
Mm-hmm. No, you can't.
You can't?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, because sex offender, or else they'll be on your streets. Where would you rather have them?
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah, you can.
you can't tell the public, hey, we've got this sex offender here at the CARES campus?
Well, a sex offender has to register.
Right.
So when they register, they go on a map. There's actually an app where you can identify where all the registered sex offenders are. So they'll be registered there, but we're not allowed to turn anybody away because of their record or anything. We're low barrier. And that's the idea behind that, right? We're like, you got this murderer here. We're like, oh, he should be with us. I would rather him with us than out on the streets, you know? And so it's actually minimizes damages than that. And we have enough security, enough cameras, enough oversight to where nothing unsafe will happen. This shelter was designed, right? I brought Robert Marbut out. Robert Marbut Jr. He was the White House advisor on homelessness at the end of Trump's term, and now he's back in the White House in homelessness. I brought him out to the CARES campus, and he said that this was one of the most ergonomically sound campuses that he's ever seen. One was because of line of sight. Two was because of the way it's set up, like in the bathrooms. Other shelters, you have communal showers. When you go into the shower, your stuff will get stolen outside. The way that the bathrooms were set up, the way that the laundry was set up, everything was thought out. Even the fences, right? So there's nothing that can be thrown over the fence. Every fence has another internal fence. So you're not going to throw any drugs, anything over. Go visit other shelters. There's a fence and then there's the shelter, and you run the risk of that. So we do have one of the most ergonomically sound shelters in the country. So, and having said that, so there's line of sight.
I agree with that because I toured that shelter and it's very clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we go hard.
No, I know.
If anybody calls it dirty, they're comparing it to their room, right? Like, I don't know what your room looks like, but like this is it's well operated.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, any other questions? We try and wrap this up.
Claudia Davis for the record. These feeding programs in the parks, do they work with you or do you work with them?
No.
I'm by Barbara Bennett.
So, no, I don't work with them. I believe that when it comes to serving food, right? So if you look at like what problem are we solving, and serving food is they say that we're solving the food insecurities problem, which isn't true. Reno is one of we have so many places to go get food, Catholic charities, gospel missions, shelter, everywhere. So you're not solving the food insecurities problem, you're solving the food options problem. Now, that would be a good program if you use the food as a vehicle to get people off the streets. But if you use it, if we're using it in a way where people are just coming, and you don't even know if those people are hungry, right? We don't know that. We don't know that the people are hungry. It might just be a place to go eat so we don't have to buy a meal. It might be and not that it's not good to serve people meals, right? But the thing is what problem are we solving versus what problem we're creating? Does that make sense? So if you and I right now were to take banquet tables, me and Claudia, get some banquet tables and we go up to Collin Ranch by the Starbucks there, that really nice neighborhood up there, and we set up that table and we bring a bunch of soup and free things, people are going to take it. And not because they're hungry, but because of nature. It's it's an impulse. It's so we have an impulse to take free stuff. Every time you go to a convention, you're taking all the free stuff. You got all these key chains and beer cozies and all this stuff. You don't even need. See, yeah, and you. So, I disagree with it. I would agree with it if there was it was used as a vehicle to get folks off the streets or to get them somewhere else. But no, it's just more of a thing where we get people together, but we don't manage our people either. We have to properly manage our people. If you were to throw a concert right now, you would have to get permits and you have to lay all these things out and you have to pay for all this stuff. And not when it comes to serving food, and they turn it into the neighborhood's problem. If you're going to bring the people, manage your people, and you stay till the last one leaves. Do you know? But we come, we give the things, we feel really good, and a lot of it, we're addicted to a ritual, right? In the same way drug addicts are addicted to the ritual of drugs, we're addicted to a ritual of helping in a way, and it feels good and people are grateful, but is the problem you're solving outweigh the problem you're creating? So I disagree with serving food in the park. Yeah.
Mike Steven for the record. Yes, I agree. We've dealt it forth a lot.
Yeah.
Don't feed, no phones. You're not focusing them to where they need to go. You're being more of a codependent. Yes.
Yeah. If you look at this health thing, we look at the spectrum of helping, right? So there's kind gesture, right in the middle. So, when we help in the wrong way, there's a deflation of psychological drive, right? You keep bringing people stuff. What's going to drive them? What's the biggest motivator in human? We're hungry, right?
Yes.
We've killed mammoths. You're that
Yes.
hungry. We can do things. The biggest barriers to health. Anyways, so this is, I'm going to get just to the end, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't really help. If you scan that with your phone, it's going to take you to a link tree that has every service provider in Northern Nevada that can help someone off the streets or can prevent them from getting to the streets. So there's also a link to their website so you can identify what the criteria is. And there's a map. So if you're working with somebody on the streets and they do have a cell phone, they can scan this and it will show them what bus route to take to get to what services. So that's really helpful. I wanted you guys to have that. I should probably put it in the other one, but
I was just going to say thanks for all your work.
hey, thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing a good job.
You've adapted. You've had to.
Oh yeah.
Right. Anthony?
Yeah, let's boomerang it back. Anthony Taylor for the record. Question. So you do intake and census and stuff. So how many people are local here? How many, you say that people are transient and stuff like that. Do you believe that other cities, San Francisco, for instance, is just shipping them here because we have better services and stuff like that? Assume.
So does that happen? Yes. Does it happen often? So Nevada was more recently sued because we were doing that. we were sending people to California, but less frequently. It does happen for sure. We have an outreach team in Carson City, and Carson City was always blaming Reno for dumping people off there. And we're like, we have more of your people here than they have there. So there's always this exchange. We do reunification where we send people home, but we don't send them a place where they don't have someone to receive them. It's controversial, but we will send people to rehab in other states if their family's there, if they have folks there. So we do have reunification. So we send people places, but we make sure there's someone to receive them. I don't think that there's this, and I'll share with you why. I don't think that there's this movement in California to send people here. And if it is, it's not effective. And the reason for that is because our ordinances are a little bit harder than California is, right? If you're homeless, it's easy to be homeless in California, that right? If you're on the streets, you get cash every month. And they were like given, the mayor out there at one time, like put that through, and they were like in San Francisco, and the people were like, no, don't make them take drug tests to get this cash. Cause they're like, what if they're using it for drugs? And so they put these ordinances in, they didn't go through, right? But it's a lot easier to be homeless out there. I promise, if you're a homeless person and you're living in San Francisco, where you get a cash income, where there's open air policies, where you can use in the streets, where it's more inviting, right? You can shit in the street out there, and they even have an app for that. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's a lot easier to be homeless there than it is to be here. So when folks come here, and I've seen it, where they're sitting and, on 4th Street, I have an outreach team. I have an outreach team on 4th Street that makes sure that we're not sitting, lying, setting up tents. We don't use drugs in the wide open. We don't drink. And it keeps our streets clean. And when somebody from California comes, and my guys are like, hey, bub, hey, we got to get going. You got to do like, what? And they're shocked, appalled. And that's just what it is. It's cool. That's cool. They do that there, but we don't do that here. And so we constantly nudge folks. So and most folks will just go back home because it's not that easy. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. In conjunction with that, recently, court cases. So, the legalese, Martin was recently overturned. Do you see any effect on, with the recent grants pass decision that has happened last year? Considering that Nevada is in the 9th, just like California, but Utah, you mentioned Utah luckily is in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. So they don't have to deal with the insanity that we have to do in conjunction with California and the other Pacific Coast states.
Yeah, so that the Martin versus Boise got turned over, right? Yes. So they can, and the problem with that was the interpretation of it, right? So does it mean if you have one person, do you have to have one open bed, or does it mean if we have a 400 point in time count that there has to be 400 open beds, right? Does it have to match this or this? And California did it different. We were trying to find a bed that matches, but that's overturned. And then you have the grants pass that that wasn't.
Yeah, that's now the precedent now, so it overturned.
Yeah, and so, but we can enforce, and we do. The idea is to have a system in place to where you don't want to, like, cops should be doing cop stuff, right? And so when we're doing outreach, we tell folks, like, they're like, what kind of authority do you have? Well, actually, none. We're just here collaborating with you because when the cops come, they got authority and they'll write you the ticket. And then if you don't take care of that ticket, then it's jail. And then if and it's going to ramp up. So we don't want you to, and so that's why these outreach teams are very, like the ambassadors, it's not just about like being on the streets and writing people tickets or sending them to jail. It's creating a culture on the streets, because homelessness isn't illegal, but behavior is what causes the problem. So if we can create a culture on the streets that models cultures that are more successful for people to get out of homelessness, then that's what we're looking for, if that makes sense. So that did help us that Martin versus Boise was overturned, and the grants pass one enabled us to be able to enforce, but we don't want to go too hard with police. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's great answer. Thank you much.
Right on.
All right, great. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So I'm going to talk about Broadhead Park again. So you said that you've been out like every day around that stretch of train track between Wells and Citro, because that was the worst, and around 4th Street. I've seen your trucks out in Broadhead Park from time to time. About how often do you typically go through there?
We go out there when the Clean and Safe sends us out there. We have a program where we grab folks. We have what we call, it's a PEP program, pre-employment program. So we'll grab folks from the shelter, anybody that wants to work. Now we have 2 different versions of it. And one of it is where we help the city clean up homeless camps, right? And so if they resolve a homeless camp and there's a lot of debris and trash, it is cost effective for the city to have us and our volunteers clean it up, more cost effective than it is to call, QAnon, or what is it? No, something. There's another, Qualcomm. That's it. So, you call, and it's very expensive. to clean up homeless camps because you have human waste, you have needles, things like this. And we will go out there and clean it up with volunteers. So what you've seen were our teams that go out and will help clean up the homeless camps. Now that particular team we don't move anybody. We respond to the clean and safe team when they have an issue and something was cleaned up, but they need to get it resolved. And a lot of times it's important that it's swift because there's kind of like this, just to put it in perspective, it's kind of like a hermit crab type situation, right? So if you clear somebody and they leave their trash in tents, shortly thereafter, if you don't clean it up, someone else will acquire that and it'll be theirs. And so we have to be really swift with it. So a lot of the, when you see our trucks out there, we're cleaning up camps so that they stay cleaned up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Grant.
Hey, right
That
on.
was a lot of great information. And I let this one go long because this is one of the number one issues that people bring up is homelessness, unhoused. So,
Yeah, and if
thank you
anybody
so
has
much.
any issues or questions or needs help with something, you can reach out to me, you can call me, you can email me, and we'll be on it.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right,
you so
thank you.
much.
Thank
And
you.
thank you guys again. Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and close that item. Moving on to item D, which is board commission committee member reports, announcements and discussions of future agenda items. Limited to items that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda, and no action may be taken on this item. Does anybody have any?
Yes. Yes, Anthony Taylor for the record. We would like to have the county health authorities talk about with the Reno partnership 1 minute, sorry, to address the illegal vending. So there has been health problems in regards to the devil dog sales, and that has been the complaints about that, especially late nights and Saturday nights. So there has been some sicknesses recently in regards to college students getting these unlicensed vendors who are selling these hot dogs in unsanitary conditions.
Yeah, I worked in food for a long time, and it opens your eyes to food safety and how important it is. So it's like I love people giving out food, I do, but or starting their own little small business, but you have to go through the proper channels. So I agree. That would be cool. Okay. All right.
Jennifer Alvarez, Council Relations Liaison for the record. I do want to let you know that I have tried reaching out and I haven't heard back yet. Another NAB also asked for them to present. So as soon as I can get a hold of someone, it might be a bit, but we're trying.
Okay,
So I just
great.
want to let you know.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ratio for the record also, as we got anywhere on trying to get Washington County and the Crossroads program, somebody from them out here too, or are they just ignoring you like they ignore everybody else?
Same boat.
Okay.
If it gets too long, I'll go talk to them in person. I don't know. I'll walk in there and be
You
like,
guys
"Hey,
are welcome to do that.
are you
Put the
free this
pressure on.
day?" Okay.
There you
Yeah. If
go.
you just want to send me a list of the ones that aren't responding, I'll go down there. Yeah. You want to come, Mike? All right. We'll get not a quorum, but yeah.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other things to add or request to add? Agency.
For the record. Mike Steven for the record. We have the St. Patrick's Day dinner, March 7th at the El Dorado. So if anybody wants to go to an Irish dinner, music and stuff, let me know. Fun stuff.
Okay, any other agenda items or possible things to add? Okay, that's looking like that's a no. Oh, no. Oh, okay. I was like, oh, one more. Okay. All right. Then we'll go ahead and close out that item and move to public comment. Item E. Any public comments?
I don't have any public comment registered for this item. We have a few participants on Zoom, but no one with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, great.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Perfect.
I second.
All right. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries to adjourn. Thank you so much.
Hey.